I am sitting alone in a small apartment I just rented 2 weeks ago. The window shows nothing but city lights and darkness. 5 years ago, I believed my marriage was the most beautiful thing I had ever built. My wife Lauren destroyed all of it in a single night. I thought disappearing from her life without a word was the best way to protect myself. But I never expected her entire family would show up at my door. That was when I realized I had to face them, not run. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If you have ever been betrayed by someone you loved with your whole heart, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Stay until the end, because what happened when her family showed up changed everything I thought I knew about standing up for myself. My name is Carmelo, and 5 years ago, I married the woman I thought was my soulmate. Lauren and I met at a small coffee shop in Portland, Oregon. We were both 26 years old, young, and full of dreams. She was sitting by the window reading a book, and when she looked up and smiled at me, I knew my life was about to change. We talked for 3 hours that first day. By the end of the month, we were inseparable. Lauren worked at a marketing firm downtown. She was creative, ambitious, and everyone who met her was drawn to her energy. I worked as a software engineer for a tech company. My job was stable, my income was good, and I always believed that together we could build something beautiful. After dating for 2 years, I proposed to her on a rainy evening in the same coffee shop where we first met. She said yes, before I even finished asking the question. Our wedding was small, but perfect. Just close family and a few friends. We honeymooned in Hawaii, and I remember lying on the beach thinking I was the luckiest man alive. When we came back, we started building our life together. We rented an apartment first. Then 3 years into our marriage, we bought our first house. It was a modest home in the suburbs of Portland with a small backyard and a fence that needed painting. But to me, it was everything. We adopted a golden retriever named Bailey. Every Sunday morning, Lauren would make pancakes while I brewed coffee. I always made sure her cup was ready before she woke up. It was a small thing, but she told me once that it made her feel loved. We talked about having children. We even discussed names. I wanted a boy named after my grandfather. She wanted a girl with a name that meant strength. We planned to start trying the following year. I introduced Lauren to my coworkers at every company event. I was proud to have her by my side. She was beautiful, smart, and whenever she laughed, the whole room seemed brighter. I trusted her completely. I never once questioned where she was or who she was with. That trust was the foundation of everything I believed about our marriage. But looking back now, I realized the cracks were forming long before I noticed them. It started about 6 months before I discovered the truth. Lauren began coming home later than usual. At first, it was just 30 minutes here and there. She said her company had taken on a new client, and the deadlines were brutal. I believed her. I even felt proud of how hard she was working. Then I noticed small changes. Her phone was always face down on the table. She never used to do that. One evening I picked it up to check the time and she snatched it from my hand faster than I had ever seen her move. She laughed and said her company required stronger passwords now for security reasons. I did not question it. The late nights became more frequent. Sometimes, she would step outside to take phone calls, closing the door behind her. When I asked who it was, she would say it was a difficult client who only called after hours. I nodded and went back to whatever I was doing. I trusted her. That was my mistake. One weekend, Lauren told me she had to attend a conference in Seattle. She would be gone for 2 nights. I wanted to surprise her, so I ordered flowers to be delivered to her hotel. The florist called me back an hour later. They said no one by that name had checked in at that hotel. My stomach dropped, but I told myself there had to be an explanation. When I called Lauren, she sounded annoyed. She said the original hotel was fully booked at the last minute, so she switched to another one nearby. She gave me the new name and I let it go. But something felt wrong. A small voice in the back of my mind whispered that things did not add up. I ignored that voice. I wish I had listened. The night I discovered the truth started like any other Friday. Lauren texted me around 6 in the evening, saying she had to work late. A big presentation was due Monday, and her team needed to finalize everything. I decided to surprise her. I picked up her favorite Thai food from the restaurant near our house and drove to her office. When I arrived, the building was dark. The security guard at the front desk looked confused when I asked for Lauren. He checked his log and told me she had signed out at 5 that afternoon. My hands started shaking as I walked back to my car. I called her. She answered on the fourth ring, and I could hear music playing in the background. She said she was still in a meeting, that they had moved to a conference room on another floor. But the music did not sound like an office. It sounded like a restaurant or a bar. I sat in my car for 10 minutes staring at my phone. We had set up location sharing years ago, back when we first started dating. It was supposed to be for safety. I had never used it to check on her before. But that night, something pushed me to open the app. Her location showed a residential building in downtown Portland. Not her office. Not a restaurant. An apartment building I had never seen before. I drove there without thinking. The whole ride my heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I parked across the street and looked up at the building. 4th floor. I could see shadows moving behind a window. 2 people. I did not go up. I did not knock on the door. I just stood there in the cold for almost an hour, watching, waiting, hoping I was wrong. But deep down, I already knew. I drove home and sat in the living room in complete darkness. Lauren came home at 2 in the morning. She smelled like cologne that was not mine. She said the meeting ran late, and afterward the team went out for drinks. She kissed my forehead and went to bed. I did not sleep that night. The next morning, I started looking for evidence. I checked our joint credit card statements. There were charges I did not recognize. Restaurants I had never been to. A hotel room booked 3 months ago, on a night she said she was visiting her mother. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the records. Then, I found the messages. Lauren had an iPad that synced with her phone. She usually kept it in her office, but that morning it was on the kitchen counter. I opened it while she was in the shower. The messages were right there in an app she thought I did not know about. His name was Derek. He was 38 years old, divorced, and he was Lauren's direct supervisor at work. The messages went back 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of sneaking around. 8 months of making me feel like I was the problem whenever I sensed something was off. But the message that broke me was not about their affair. It was about me. Lauren had written to Derek that I was boring. She said life with me was like drinking plain water. She told him she was figuring out how to divorce me while keeping the house we had bought together. The house I had put my savings into. The house where I thought we would raise our children. I put the iPad down and walked outside. I stood in our backyard for a long time, looking at the fence I had painted last summer. The garden, she said she loved the life I thought we were building. All of it was a lie. That afternoon, I made my decision. I was not going to confront her. I was not going to scream, or cry, or beg for explanations. I knew that if I looked into her eyes, she would find a way to manipulate me. She always knew exactly what to say, to make me doubt myself, so I chose a different path. I chose to disappear. On Monday, while Lauren was at work, I called a divorce lawyer. I explained the situation and asked him to prepare the paperwork. I transferred my share of our savings from our joint account into a personal account she did not know about. I found a small apartment on the other side of the city and signed a lease that same day. On Wednesday morning, Lauren left for work like any other day. She kissed me goodbye and told me she would be home late again. I nodded and smiled. As soon as her car disappeared down the street, I started packing. I took only what was mine: clothes, my laptop, personal documents, a few photographs from before we met. I left everything else. The furniture, the decorations, the memories. I could not take Bailey with me because the new apartment did not allow pets. Leaving him was the hardest part. I knelt down and hugged him for a long time before I walked out the door. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. No note. No explanation. Just the ring and an empty house. Over the next few hours, I blocked Lauren on everything. Her phone number, her email, every social media platform. I contacted my company's human resources department and told them not to share any of my personal information with anyone who called. I sent a short email to my parents telling them that Lauren and I had separated and asking them not to press for details.